David, who is he here or not? Or is he? Okay, he's coming, and Hank for the 8 years of service, to our town and to our residents, and the great work that you guys have done. And so I just wanted to come here and thank you for all that work. And on behalf, as I said, on behalf of town and town council, thank you very much, and we appreciate everything that you've done.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of all of us, we appreciate you taking time out from your, I'm sure, busy schedule to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will call this meeting to order tonight, Thursday, January the 10th, Committee of Adjustment. So I will look for approval of the agenda that's before us tonight. Oh, sorry, yeah, last meeting and I mess up the procedure. Good for me. Sorry, welcome to Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. I'll start by introducing the committee members and staff that are with us. I'm your retiring chair. My name is Grace Marsh. The remaining members of the committee are my vice chair, Tom Plamondon, Hank Gosar, Roy Harrington, and when he arrives, David Mango. The acting secretary treasurer tonight is Antonio Preverino and Antonio Greco, and our planner is Matthew Preverini. For each application that we hear tonight, this is the process that will occur. I'll briefly outline the purpose of each of the application. The applicant or the agent will be given the opportunity to make a presentation, however, it's not required. It's the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application stand on its merits. Following any initial comments from the applicant, as chair, I'll invite members of the public forward who have an interest in the application. Those members of the public who do wish to speak must ensure the microphone is on, clearly state your name and address, and also sign the form at the front called Request for Notice. This information is being recorded and retained under the Municipal Act and the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and will form part of the public record. If once you complete your form, please provide it to the Secretary Treasurer. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once the discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, then no further presentations will be made. As I said, the meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and other personal information are being recorded to assist with the preparation of accurate minutes and create a record that is available to the general public and will also be posted on the town's website. Any questions about the collection of the data should be directed to the town clerk. Please ensure that all questions, comments are directed through me as the chair. If relevant, I'll request the appropriate person to respond. It should be noted that I will allow the applicant to respond to questions or comments if the committee feels that's relevant. The reports that are being considered tonight are available on the desk in the front. And I think that's it. Owners and agents will be automatically notified of any decisions. Others would need to fill out the request for information form. So we'll commence, and I'll look for any declarations of pecuniary interest. None. I will declare for the record that I used to have a pecuniary interest in an owner of one of the properties, as my husband was employed by the firm, but he has since retired over a year ago, and that pecuniary interest no longer stands. Approval of the agenda, please.
Through the chair, I'll recommend the agenda be approved as circulated.
Thank you. A seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting. Sorry, we've done pecuniary interest. Adoption of the minutes of the last meeting, please. I was absent for that meeting, so I will look to the vice chair to take this one. Those minutes are carried. Thank you. So the first application that is on the agenda tonight is a minor variance application, MV 2018-35, 2656626 Ontario Limited, 304 Kennedy Street West. As an update for the audience, this application has been withdrawn by the applicant. So we will not be considering any minor variance applications tonight for that property. The second item on the agenda tonight is also for the same property, 304 Kennedy Street West, and it's a consent application, C 2018-07. The purpose of the above consent application is to sever the existing lot to allow the creation of one new residential lot fronting onto Kennedy Street West. Planning Division has reviewed it and has conditions. If it's approved, Building Division has done a preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division application reviewed, subject to conditions. Operational Services, the application is reviewed, subject to conditions. Central York Fire Services, the application was reviewed, no comments provided. Electra Utilities and York Region also reviewed the application and no comments were provided. Do we have the applicant or the agent for this one?
How do you turn that on? It's on. Madam Chair, my name is Ray Floyd. I am the agent for the present owners of 304 Kennedy Street West. My residence is 9 Woodview Drive, Collingwood, Ontario, L9Y3Y9. Our application is for a severance to divide this lot into 2 lots, one with a frontage of 18 meters and the other with a lot frontage of 22.22. Both lots conform to the present zoning. There are no minor variances required or requested. If there are any questions, I'm certainly happy to comment to you.
Excellent, thank you very much. I will ask if there are any members of the public that wish to speak to the consent application to sever. Please come forward, name, address, as I said, and we'll go.
Excuse me. My name is Diane Pinder. I live at 62 Sisman Avenue. My property abuts 304 Kennedy to the west. I prepared a letter to the committee, but I also have some comments on the report that I just read from the staff just on the table here as well. So I'll start with my letter. I left a copy of it in front of all of you, so you have a chance to look at it as well and mark it for comments if you want to ask me about anything I said afterward. My husband and I own the property at 62 Sisman Avenue, which abuts 304 Kennedy Street West. The council held a meeting last year to change the zoning on the property at 304 Kennedy Street West. As a neighbor directly affected, I received a notice advising me of the meeting and that I had an opportunity both to submit concerns and speak on the night of the meeting. I prepared a document complete with diagrams and submitted it well prior to the stated deadline to ensure that the councillors would have time to review it, if possible, prior to the meeting. My concerns were possible damage to trees, sun blockage, and reduced privacy if side yard allowances were not increased. The lots on Sisman Avenue abutting 304 Kennedy are not deep, and a house built 3 meters from the property line to the limits of the allowed bylaws could result in a towering wall less than 10 feet from the property line and disturbance of trees. When the meeting was open for neighbors to speak, I addressed the council to voice my concerns. I started by asking them to refer to my document as I spoke. However, none of the councillors had my document because the town office did not distribute them. I was at a disadvantage not being able to use diagrams to detail my concerns, and when I asked for the town slides used in their presentation moments before to be projected to help with visualizing my points, I was ignored. I stumbled along as best as I could, but I don't think that I was able to fully address my concerns. I was told that the rezoning was a formality and that my opportunity to speak would happen when the owner of 304 Kennedy went to the Committee of Adjustments for the severance of the land. The vote was taken to move forward with the rezoning at the next council meeting. I signed a document that night to receive the results of the rezoning, but never received them, and did not know what the exterior side yard allowance setbacks were. I also checked periodically online, but they still have not been posted. Just before Christmas, when everyone is very busy and possibly on holidays, the application for severance and an application for a variance arrived by mail for the meeting tonight. The variance said, in quotes, to permit a reduced easterly exterior side yard setback to 4.45 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 1.55 meters. When I read that, I understood that the exterior side yard setbacks were then 6 meters, 4.55 plus 1.55, and that the variance was on the easterly side, not the westerly side at Sisseman Avenue. To me, it seemed as if my concerns from the previous meeting had been addressed and that we had the best scenario we could hope for. Still, however, I wanted to know more about the affected trees, and we did not receive a proposed site plan despite the notice of the meeting indicating that the site plan was attached. I attended the town planning office on December 31st and asked to see the proposed site plan. I was shocked to see that it showed that the variance was not on the easterly side, but on the westerly side, and that the variance requested was not to reduce from 6 meters to 4.45 meters, but to reduce from 3 meters to 2.05 meters. I told Antonio Greco that we had been given erroneous information and that I wanted a copy of the correct information and additional copies for the other affected neighbors so that I could distribute them that day. Mr. Greco gave me a copy, but said that the other neighbors would have to come in person to get a copy of something they should have received by mail anyway. Subsequently, and only due to my visit, a new corrected minor variance document dated January 3rd was drawn up and sent to all the affected neighbors. Also on my visit to the town office on December 31st, I asked Mr. Greco about the protection of trees, and he said it would be in the parks comments that were due Thursday, January 3rd or Friday, January 4th. He said I should talk to the Parks Department. I found out that the documents had actually been forwarded in October. I also found out that if more than the allotted 2 trees per lot were taken down, that fines would be imposed, and those fines would be used to plant new trees somewhere in Aurora, but not necessarily on the property at 304 Kennedy. That means that if mature trees that protect my privacy are removed, then it could be a permanent situation. Although the proposed variance on the agenda for tonight has since been withdrawn, it did show the clear intent from the developer to build homes as large as possible for maximum profit. The footprint of the 2 proposed homes was 2,645 square feet, each which alone is much greater than the 2,300 square feet on 2 floors of my own home and the home next door. The plan was a 3-story home with a 3rd level, not a complete level, but nevertheless, creating quite an imposing structure dwarfing our homes. Our sunlight would be completely obliterated and our privacy and quiet enjoyment of our property totally compromised. When I attended the town planning office again yesterday, Mr. Greco told me my concerns about side yard allowances should have been addressed at the rezoning stage, and that the Committee of Adjustments has no authority to change them, nor do the neighbors have any right to appeal any subsequent building permit if the site plan conforms to the bylaw. This was news to me because I had been previously told that the Committee of Adjustments was my time to voice my concerns on the exterior side yard allowances. I have not had proper counseling on the process from the authorities that do have that information, and this has resulted in missing the appropriate time to ensure that adequate exterior side yard allowances were instituted to protect the tree line on the eastern side of 304 Kennedy Street West to allow for continued sunlight on our property and some privacy and quiet enjoyment of our yard. This means that our only hope of not losing our privacy, sunlight, and mature trees is to have the Committee of Adjustments deny the severance. As I understand, it is within your mandate to do so, as in Aurora's consent application process document, it clearly states that, quote, "It is important to realize that conformity with the town's official plan and zoning bylaw does not mean that the application for consent will be automatically approved. Under the Planning Act, the committee must also have regard to the health, safety, convenience, and welfare of the present and future inhabitants of the municipality." Further, in Citizens Guide 5, Land Severances, it states that, quote, "Approval is required to ensure that consideration is given to the effects of the division of land on the site, on the neighbors, and on the community as a whole." In conclusion, I know that it is not within your authority to change exterior side yard allowances. However, if you deny the severance application and the town of Aurora subsequently changes the zoning of 304 Kennedy Street West to include a restriction of a 6-meter exterior side yard allowance on the western side of 304 Kennedy, then we would be satisfied and would not oppose a future severance of the property. We do understand that both the developer and the town of Aurora have a vested interest in the existing property being severed to accommodate 2 homes. But we, as neighbors, have a vested interest in a 6-meter exterior side yard allowance that will give us a greater chance for continuing the quiet enjoyment of our existing homes with the trees, privacy, and sunlight. There is no reason why everyone cannot be accommodated. Please deny this severance application until our concerns can be met. So then I was looking at the document for tonight, and there are several things that I noted. The first one, in the official plan, the very last sentence, it says, talking about the subject lands designated as stable neighborhood, it says that they should coexist with existing development without causing any undue adverse impact on surrounding properties. I suggest that this is an undue adverse impact on our properties. The next thing is on the next page, third line down, it says it shall be compatible with regard to building scale and urban design with the character of the neighborhood. As I said, our houses are 2,300 square feet, and the proposed house that he had before it was withdrawn was approximately 6,000 square feet, with a footprint bigger than the square footage of our house. So that goes to several of the points. The second point saying the size and configuration of nearby lots and the heights and scale of nearby residential properties, because he was going to be 3 stories. And I know it's in the building code that the zoning bylaw that they can be built that big, but still we are small properties abutting them. Then there's another point, it's the third to last paragraph on the page, talking about the building elevation drawings prepared by Hunt Design, but those apparently were withdrawn with the withdrawing of the variance, so I don't know why that is even in here. If that house is still going to be built, how will it be built unless the severance line is drawn differently, because they're not asking for a variance. That might be my last one. Since I only have one time to talk, I want to ask if there's any questions.
Actually, I'll allow the committee to do that after we've heard all of the comments from the public. We take all the public comments first.
And so am I allowed to speak again or not?
Probably not, as per the rules, but I have a little latitude in that, so let's see how the comments go. I will tell you that we are only dealing with the consent to sever tonight. We're not dealing with anything to do what may or may not be built on it in the future, so we can't comment on that. The other part of your presentation that we will not comment on is how and what your dealings with staff were. We have no knowledge of that, and we have no jurisdiction over that. that. Your comments are on the record, and the administration will receive them, and if they see any need, they will deal with that. We will not comment on that part of your presentation either. The parts of your comments that relate to the severance will absolutely be taken into consideration. So having said that, I'll get to see who's next, and we may come back to you. The committee may ask for the opportunity to ask you questions, and we will allow that. Okay?
And I would like to reinforce that a towering building, if it's allowed, if the severance is allowed, and there's 2 houses instead of 1, the house close to us, right on the property line, would make a big wall behind
And
the
again,
houses.
we have no regard right now for what may or may not ever be built. We're only dealing with, can that lot as it exists today exist as 2 separate lots? That's all we have before us to consider. Okay? Thank you very much. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to express comments to the committee? Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is George Reeve, and I've lived at 66 Sisman Avenue in Aurora for over 26 years. I have a vested interest in all the proceedings regarding 304 Kennedy because of my house is the second one in from the corner, and that's where most of the action will be, I'm assuming, as it progresses. I've written a letter way back in October 17 regarding the concerns I had of the property, and it's been well covered by most people directly affected. However, there's going to be some new faces around, I think, after the recent election, so I'm thinking I should issue it again just so that the right people can be brought up to speed and be knowledgeable about what the circumstances are regarding the development of the property. My main concern of all this is space. It's where the buildings or the structures will be situated when it's all approved through the normal channels. And needless to say, they're further away from my house to the start of the new building. It would be beneficial, and I think beneficial to any new owner of the property, because I wouldn't want to be sitting on top of my neighbors in a monster house, and it would benefit everybody if they've got sufficient space, which the parameters allow. So I'm hoping that any decisions are made in the future regarding the building of these houses will be fair and reasonable and beneficial to all parties. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I'll reiterate to you as well, Mr. Reeve, we're not dealing with anything being built on those lots tonight. We're simply dealing with, can one lot become 2? So we have to stay with what we have before us. When the time comes for homes to be built, then they will follow through a process. If they require variances, it will come before a committee again, but we cannot consider or talk about what's not before us tonight, unfortunately. So thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have comments directly related to the consent application to sever the lots that they would like to address to us? Okay. Thank you. Did you have something further you'd like to add at this point in time, sir?
Just a clarification, Madam Chair. First of all, we are building totally within the bylaw that was discussed last March, which gave larger side yards.
Okay,
We're
again,
nothing to do with the side yard tonight.
But we do not have anything that you're doing in terms of building before us tonight, so we really don't need to hear this. The whole idea of what I'm saying is, if you sever these lots, there are rules out there. You'll present whatever you present to planning. They'll decide if you've met the rules. If you haven't, you'll come before another committee. Or in the meantime, council may reconsider the zoning that they've put on there, and they may make changes to that. Without us having any of that information before us, we can't discuss what may or may not be built in the future.
That's fine.
I know this is probably frustrating for people, but we have to stay within the parameters of the authority that we have. All right?
Okay,
So
you.
I'm going to open the floor now to committee members who may have questions of either the applicant, staff, or any of the delegates.
Madam Chair, and this is really a point of clarification. Could someone please explain the issue of the easement across the two Sisman properties?
Through to staff, please. Can you speak to the easement?
Through the chair, can you clarify what you would like to know about the easement?
That currently there's an easement there, and on the basis of this consent, this easement would be withdrawn.
Subject to through the chair, subject to approval of this application, yes, an easement would have to be withdrawn. The existing easement is an easement for the existing driveway at 304 Kennedy West to be removed.
Through the chair, and maybe, again, more a point of clarification than anything else. And in order to avoid any confusion from those who made comments relative to what was circulated on the consent, there are footprints that the applicant had shown, and I'll just ask the applicant just to clarify that the footprints that we see on the application, the additional drawings that were provided, those, for all intents and purposes, don't exist any further. We're only dealing with the consent, but where I think maybe the public might have been a little bit confused here, you had two applications. You withdrew the minor variance application. The consent application still shows what amounts to site plan and some elevations. And I just want clarification from you that these are not to be considered in any manner with respect to the consent. Am I correct?
The site plans that were submitted at the time of the application being presented have not been changed. They're exactly the same. And it is quite plain on there, showing the side yards, the front yards, size of the building, so forth. It's all on there. And was not changed at all.
Well, yeah, then it means, yeah, that's why I'm bringing this up. When I'm looking at what package I've got, which is what was submitted, if I look at your interior, call it the interior lot, you've got side setbacks that would require variances. So I want to be clear that the information that you did circulate is not to be considered. Maybe staff will be able to shed some light on this.
Through the chair, that was the purpose of the minor variance application that was withdrawn. With having said that, with the applicant withdrawing this application, should this application for consent be approved, the applicant will have to conform wholly to the zoning that is in place. So unless the applicant moving forward, should this be approved, want to go into that minimum 3 meters, that's when they will have to come before committee. Otherwise, they have to conform to the zoning in place. So So with that said, the site plans that you're looking at form part of the withdrawn application and are not being considered tonight.
Yeah. So through the chair, again, just I understand what staff is saying. I appreciate the clarification on that. I'm just looking at the material that was circulated with the consent application that shows some elevations, it shows some interior floor layouts, and it does show siting of the buildings, which would have required, I just want, again, let's just make sure, and I know that a consent in no way gives the applicant the right to anything other than just the consent, and that those drawings really should be ignored.
Thank you. Thank you. Sam, David? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, first of all, I've got two questions to staff, and maybe this will help clarify some of the concerns by the residents. My first question is related to the staff's report under zoning bylaw, and this is on page 4 at the bottom, where you are saying that that's the second sentence. From second sentence, that the R3 in brackets 500 zone permits a single detached dwelling and includes zoning standards and the new lot area and frontage. The proposed new lot conforms to the performance standards of the R3 in brackets 500 zone. No variations are required as a result of the proposed severance. Would you explain to the residents who are asking this related to this? Because what you are saying here is that based on the severance, the lot's coverage, the sizes, all they conform. There are no issues. So can you explain, just for the residents who are concerned to understand this, what it means?
Sure, through the chair. This kind of goes back to the original zoning bylaw that was passed by council, and you'll see at the end of that bylaw there's actually a clause in there that states the effect of the zoning amendment will rezone the subject property to one common exception zone category and will facilitate the creation of one additional lot and a single detached dwelling unit. So the key point in there is the facilitation of the creation of one additional lot, and that's why the applicant is here today. Having said that, the zoning standards that were put in place by this zoning bylaw and some of the parent provisions in the bylaw 6000-17 foster two lots that wholly conform to the parameters in place, whether that relates to frontage, front yard setback, side yard setbacks, lot coverage, rear yards, height, etc. Okay. So with that said, the result of this proposed severance, there are no variances required, and that's what that section is stating.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to repeat that for myself. So no variances are required to have two lots empty, standing alone, nothing on them, meet the zoning bylaw that's in place that was passed by council. When we say no variances, we're still not talking about building anything.
Through the chair, no. In this case, when you're creating two lots, the two largest standards would be lot area and lot frontage, and in this case, what is proposed meets the zoning bylaw standards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's the reason I was asking that. I wanted it to come from you so that the residents who have concerns, they are clear on this. Okay, I understand it, but I wanted to make sure the residents who have concerns understand about this. Because this is different from the minor variances, the application which has been withdrawn. Okay, so thank you for that. The other part, I want also the town, the staff to confirm condition number 4. Condition number 4 is about the servicing capacity allocation. My question to you is, in your opinion, do you think that there will be servicing capacity to be located to the new residents?
Through the chair, my understanding as planning staff is that we have a reserve, and it's on a first-come, first-served basis. Right now, we have some abundance, and with the creation of only one lot, I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay. My last question, I think, it will be to the applicant. I believe you have read all these conditions, and you understand them well. You are aware of all of them. Specifically, I want to ask or have a confirmation from you from condition number 3, bullet point number 1, about the obtaining a demolition permit. Are you aware that you'll be required to obtain a demolition permit before you get obtain the certificate official?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I think Tom had one further question. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. Conditions. I just want to make sure, and for the benefit of the residents, want to make sure that you're comfortable with the conditions, in particular those that relate to removal of trees, the requirement for an evaluation report prepared by a certified arborist or professional registered forester, and that you're familiar with the town's policies with regards to compensation for tree removal and all the other conditions in there.
We've done everything we possibly can to save as many trees as possible. That's why the easterly lot is wider. It's to save that easterly tree line.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sure the residents will appreciate all of the efforts that you can make to preserve and take into account their concerns. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. That was actually just going to be my comment again for the benefit of the residents. There are lots of conditions attached should this be approved, and many of them do, Ms. Pinder, address some of the concerns that you've raised. Our manager of parks is extremely diligent with the protection of the trees, and she has conditions with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points. We have conditions concerning right-of-way and drainage and all of that, along with the demolition permit and then the allocation of water. So 2.5 pages of conditions that must be met if this severance is approved, which do address some of the concerns we would hope that some of the neighbors have had. So having said that, and the applicant has acknowledged the extensive conditions. Oh, I'm sorry. One more question.
Sorry, Madam Chair, through you. Back to the applicant. When you initially came up here, you said that the two site plans for these two homes would not change as per what we were given. However, just let me finish, which says that you do require a variance. But are you fully aware that these site plans must change to meet the 3 meter? Okay.
To eliminate the minor variance, all we did was left the lots exactly the same size, and we just pulled the wall in to give the complete 3 meter side yard. Okay. And that's the way the drawings are being done. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? Then I will look for a motion, please.
Chair, I would propose that the consent be approved subject to the conditions as presented.
Is there a seconder? Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Okay, application number 3 before us tonight is 33 Industry Street. We have lots of paper on this one, so I'll just give everybody a second to pull all their paperwork out. Thank you. So this is application number MV 2018. Minor variance application MV 2018-34. The purpose of this application is to permit an automobile parts recovery business with associated retail sales and outside storage as a permitted use on the site. Planning Division have reviewed the application, have additional comments, and additional comments have been provided. Building Division has a preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division, Operational Services, Central York Fire Services, Electra, and York Region all reviewed the application and no comments were provided. I understand that the applicant has a presentation. If you'd like to come forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dan Stone. I am a registered professional planner and a consultant. I am representing the ownership of the property with respect to this application. I've been involved with this process since September of this year. I should mention that with me here tonight as well are Brian Stokes and Sarah Carew, who are representatives of the ownership of the property. As you know, there's a significant amount of material that I know has been circulated to you as part of the agenda package. That would include my covering planning justification report that came in with the application when it was filed back in October. And I have prepared, as you know, for tonight's meeting, I have prepared a presentation. I am prepared to go through that presentation with you. Copies have been circulated to the committee, hard copies in front of you as well. And I know that we have also asked Mr. Greco to circulate to you a risk management plan that was approved by the Region of York for the operational use of this property. I am also aware, having seen the staff report as of Tuesday of this week, that planning staff is recommending that this application be deferred. And I'm also aware that there's a significant amount of concern from local residents, and we've seen some public comments come in over the last couple of days. With that, having conferred with my client prior to the meeting, we are prepared to accept the committee's decision to defer this application to continue to work with staff. That said, I am also prepared to go forward with my presentation and go through that as well. So, Madam Chair, I'm in your hands as it relates to that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I will look to the committee for direction. If the applicant is prepared to defer, I would see some benefit. I do believe there's a number of members of the public here that have an interest. Could I just quickly see a raise of hands? Who's here for this application? That's what I thought. Thank you. Given that, I think it might benefit both yourself and very much benefit staff, as well as the interested parties, if you go ahead with your presentation. What I do want members of the public to understand, a deferral is simply that, a deferral. It will come back again. You will receive notice again, and you will have every one of the same opportunities as you have tonight in the future. None of your opportunity will be taken away. But if everyone wishes to see some of the information around it, then I'm willing to have us do that prior to a motion to defer, because once we defer it, we stop talking about it. So I'll look to the committee. Was that what we would like, and would staff be amenable to seeing some of the information presented? Let them go ahead. Seems to be all right. Then let's carry on. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, my name is Dan Stone. I was retained back in September with respect to this application, and you'll have in your package a significant planning justification report that I put in place for the application. I should say that following my remarks and this brief presentation, the ownership may want to have a few words in terms of some comments on the application. So if I can just take you through the slide deck. You have a hard copy in front of you, and we have it on the screen for the public as well. And Antonio, you can help me with advancing the slides. So the first slide, just to give you context, is the aerial photography. You'll see the subject property outlined in red at the corner of Industry and Mary, in an area that, especially to the north of Mary Street, is predominantly industrial in nature in terms of the land uses. Was I supposed to do something? Okay, we're fine. So yes, that's just giving you the context, showing the subject property in terms of the aerial photography. The next slide outlines the proposal. And again, we're here with an application to ask the Committee of Adjustment to authorize the subject property to be used for an automobile parts recovery business with associated retail, sales, and outside storage, subject to conditions. And I think that's important. I want to go through the conditions that I have prepared as part of my planning analysis at the end of the presentation. Section 45(2)(b) of the Planning Act does talk about the powers of this committee in terms of what you're authorized to do, and most of the times you're doing land division applications like you just did, and perhaps minor variances where you're dealing with side yard reductions of the nature of the previous application as well. But the committee also has powers to deal with authorizing uses, and this is where we have filed this application, seeking the committee's approval to authorize the use as we proposed. Just a couple of the slides that I have next are just photographs of the property. This is the existing Quonset hut addition to the building that can be seen from the Mary Street frontage. And that is taken basically, that shot is taken from the sidewalk on Mary Street, just showing the business operation and the name of the business operator who is currently leasing the property, JM Luxury Auto Parts. The next photograph is taken from the sidewalk further east, and this is the interface or the transition from the abutting property to the east. You can see the parking area, some mature vegetation, and a privacy fence along the east property line of the subject property. And the next slide will show you the subject property as it looks, as it appears from the Industry Street frontage. That shows you the existing building. You can barely make out the Quonset hut addition to the rear with the ribbed shape of the building. These pictures were taken in slightly better weather conditions than we're dealing with out there today. Next, it's included in your application package and my planning justification report, but I think it's important to understand the history of the ownership of the property, ownership and the history of the land use. And there's two significant ownerships. There was the Leachy ownership from 1963 through to 1982, and Mr. Leachy operated a carpet business, and through our investigations as well, did obtain building permits. I want to point out the 1972 permit was issued by the town for an off addition, and that was something that we discovered through our research. And then in 73, there was a permit issued for an industrial building, and I'm assuming that was the Quonset hut that we see on the property today. In 82, we have an ownership change where Anthony Bondi purchased the property from Leachy and proceeded to operate the property for an automobile repair shop. And that takes us up to the ownership change in February 2012 when my client purchased the property. So I just bring that history to you that goes back to 1963 as an indication that Throughout the course of the years, this property has supported various different commercial uses, and importantly, an automobile-related use with outside storage to the east of the Quonset hut. Next slide is your official plan, or the town's official plan. You can see the subject property outlined in red. The gray land use designation is the existing employment light industrial area designation. You've got pink to the east and the darker purple to the west, which is the promenade area. These are all employment designations in the official plan. Excuse me, these are designations in the official plan that provide for a range of different employment type uses. So they would include a broad range of uses from office to industrial manufacturing. Specifically for the subject property, Section 10.72 of the official plan allows for automobile related uses including service, rental, parts sales, gas bars, car washes, service stations, and auto body repair. So those are the permissions that flow from the senior planning document, the official plan that's in place. I've also pointed out an additional policy in the official plan under 10.73 on the slide, and this is a policy that allows for, as you can see, limited accessory outdoor storage. So those are some of the driving planning policy policies that are in place that have assisted me with my review of the application. The next slide is the zoning bylaw, and you'll see the O1 zone very predominant or very dominant to the south, and that's the Conservation Authority Shepherd's Bush property. But you'll see surrounding the entire area is a variety of different E zones. The E zones are your employment zones, and again, this just further underscores that you've got a series of employment and industrial land use zones that provide for a range of different activities. The brackets are the site specifics that are tailored for the specific area. This property is within a special exception area number 9, which was specifically designed to capture the properties along Mary Street and allow for the uses that existed at that date of August of 1981. And those are the bylaw that's specific to this area, including the subject property, is one which says a variety of employment uses are permitted, including those that existed at that time, whether or not they included outside storage. So that's another critical consideration with this application. In summary, my analysis of this application is that the subject property is, as you can see and as I've demonstrated, is located in an established employment area. This is not a stable residential area. There are some residential uses in the area. I would suggest that those are all legal non-conforming, and if you look at your official plan and the zoning bylaw, the intent would be that those uses convert to an employment use and in conformity with the approved documents. As it relates to this property, I've shown that the official plan does permit automobile-related uses, which is what we're dealing with here, as well as outside storage, which is also what we're looking for. The historical land use has included a variety of commercial businesses, including the automobile-related uses from 1982. I have mentioned in my preliminary comments a risk management plan. That is a document which I think Antonio has circulated to the committee, and it's November of last year. And just for the committee's understanding, what it is, it's an operational manual that is required by the Region of York whenever you're dealing with land uses that are within a wellhead protection area. This is to deal with groundwater and issues associated with environmental contamination. So the risk management plan was approved by the Region of York. It's dated November of last year, and it does deal with how the owner and operator has to conduct his business to ensure that we're not having any negative impacts on the groundwater. I would point out as well that the staff report has indicated that there's been no concerns or objections identified by internal agencies or internal departments at the town, nor the external agencies that have been circulated. So with that, I would ask Antonio the next slide. In my planning analysis, I did recommend that the committee should grant the application to authorize this use specifically as we've set it out, and as, Madam Chair, you've read into the application. But part of my analysis also included that the following conditions be attached to the committee's decision. These conditions are designed entirely to address issues around compatibility with adjacent land uses, issues around unsightliness and the look of the property. So the first condition would be that the existing privacy fencing along the south side of the property abutting Mary, as well as the east lot line, that fencing be maintained in good condition. I think that's critically important. It's a 6-foot high wooden fence, and it should be maintained in good condition because it does provide the screening that's necessary for the outside storage. I also recommended that the owner prepare and provide a risk management plan to approved by the Region of York, and that's been done as you've got the documentation in front of you. So I think we've proactively, or the owner at least, has proactively gone ahead and addressed that condition. The other condition would be that the long-term storage of any scrap vehicles after recycling and salvaging of parts is completed, that the long-term storage of those vehicles be prohibited, that they be moved off to the site and transported to a salvage yard where they would see their final days. Because the intent here is not to have scrap vehicles staying here for any length of time. The parts and pieces that are of value are taken, and then the carcass, if you will, is taken away to an approved salvage yard. Finally, the other condition is that any storage in that yard east of the Quonset hut to the east property line controlled in the sense that it not be stacked any higher than 6 feet. The purpose, of course, is to maintain the storage of any parts and recycled materials is not reaching heights higher than the fence, and therefore you've got your screening maintained. So those are the conditions that I, as a land use planner, suggested that should be imposed in order to achieve the objectives for this application. And Madam Chair, that summarizes my submissions. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I also know that either Sarah or Brian would like to say a couple of words on behalf of the ownership.
Absolutely. Good evening to the panel and to the community members that are in attendance. My name is Sarah Carew. I'm a licensed paralegal and a representative for the property owner. I want to briefly address the panel this evening regarding a few areas of concern that have materialized in the past few weeks regarding our minor variance application. The property owner has been in active discussion with the Town of Aurora Planning Department regarding the subject address for several months, both in an individual capacity as well as by employing the expertise of Thor Stone Consulting Services, specifically Mr. Dan Stone, who we just heard from. These discussions mainly have been with Mr. Sean LaPena, a planner within the Planning and Development Services Department, and the Town of Aurora have taken place with a proactive viewpoint of working in conjunction with the Planning Department to determine the best approach of meeting their concerns, as well as obtaining directions and instructions on how to best approach the matters at hand this evening. Up to this point, the contact with Mr. LaPena has been very helpful and effective in giving us a specific direction in which we should approach these matters. We appreciate his directive and proceeded to follow his instruction and recommendation by filing a minor variance application with the Town of Aurora.
After viewing the staffing report provided to us by Mr. LaPena and receiving word of the potential deferral on this matter this evening, we are perplexed as it seems that many of the recommendations issued by the staff in the staffing report have either already been addressed or many attempts have been made to satisfy much of the staff's concerns. Specifically, we were unclear on what part of our request requires further refining, as the proposed land use and business operation we feel has been fairly well defined and described within our application. It appears that the panel may be uncertain whether a minor variance application is the appropriate application to accommodate our proposal. However, the Town of Aurora's very representative, Mr. Sean LaPena, not only instructed the formal submission of a minor variance application, but also attached it in an email to us sent to our office on October 17th. It is only based on the instruction from Mr. LaPena that this application was submitted. It would be unreasonable and unfair to the property owner at this late juncture to suggest altering the direction and instruction and procedure offered by the very department that advised the course of action from the onset. Mr. Dan Stone submitted a planning analysis which addresses both the nature of the land use in the area as well as the approved official plan and zoning bylaw for the subject property. We feel that this analysis is more than appropriate to determine if the suggested use is appropriate for the property and surrounding area. In terms of the questions surrounding the residential use on the property, to this point our application does not seek approval for the existing residential uses and for various reasons. The residential use at this point is lawful and has been continuous and may continue under Section 34, subsection 9 of the Planning Act. In regard to the suggestion of a site inspection, it is important for the panel to consider that we are and always have been open to a site inspection. Furthermore, we have requested on several occasions for the planning staff to attend a site inspection so that we may discuss the land use compatibility issues, but have received no response to any of those invitations. We agree wholeheartedly that a site inspection is an important step to understanding and complying with the Town of Aurora's guidelines. The staff report addresses that approval of a use not recognized under the bylaw would result in implementing a form of land use not approved by Council. We would like to point out that this is precisely why or what subsection 40 or section 45 subsection 2B of the Planning Act refers to. This section has been designed to give the Committee of Adjustment the authority to authorize uses which are not well defined within the zoning bylaw. The report references a lack of existing parameters that clearly delineates the uses. Thorstone Consulting has prepared recommendations within the application that proposes a definition for the use while also proposing limited conditions that are designed to control and screen the proposed use, as we've just seen. To address the concerns of the potential unsafe and unsightly nature of the property, we have also proposed conditions that are designed to address the issue. We have provided photos and shown that the existence of fencing as well as hedges and shrubbery that contribute to help seclude the property from being a potential eyesore to neighbors and the industrial community. To speak in regard to what we agree is a very important issue of environmental degradation, we would like to point out that the owner of the subject property has secured a Region of York approval of a risk management plan, or RMP, which includes a number of operational requirements that will ensure that the proposed use will not harm the environment and local groundwater specifically. This RMP is dated November 1st and has been provided to the Planning Department and should have been forwarded to the staff as well. In conclusion, we would like to mention that it seems the vocal neighbourhood opposition is against this specific tenant's use of the property in regard to the potential environmental issue or Ministry of Labour issues, but not necessarily against the zoning application itself. It is our position that these concerns be met by the appropriate authorities, being the Minister of Environment or the Ministry of Labour. However, on behalf of the property owner, please let me express our sincere agreement in regard to the environmental concerns and apologize to the neighbors and the community. If at any time the landlord was made aware of the discontent of the neighboring business owners, we would have definitely taken action in this regard. I can assure you at this time that the tenants in this particular unit will be vacating the property as soon as possible. We would like to comment that we have diligently complied, followed, and conformed to any and all recommendations put forth by the Planning Department in an effort to proceed forward with our minor variance application. We will continue to do as such and are willing and available for further consultation or visits to the subject area. And it is our position, however, that we have followed a course of direction as instructed by the Planning Department staff. As a result of this instruction, we have provided a fully detailed and clearly defined application for the Committee of Adjustment to consider. We ask that you deliberate with an open mind and reasonably conclude an approval for our minor variance application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Stokes, did you want to speak as well? You're okay? All right. Okay, thank you very much. Stay close. I'm sure the committee will have questions for both of you, but I'd like to open this up now to allow the members of the public to address the committee. Step forward. Name and address, we'll need that. And I would just ask, seems to be a number of you and we want to hear you all. Try not to repeat each other. Hearing something 3 times doesn't necessarily give it more weight than hearing it once. But please come forward with any new information that you would like us to hear. So please come forward.
Madam Chair and Council, my name is Ted Bondi. 70 Mary Street is the business adjacent to 33 Industry Street where we operate our family automotive repair business. Approximately 1982, we purchased the property at 33 Industry Street from Gord Lease, in which he did indeed operate a carpet business. We then in turn moved our small automotive repair shop from Snowball to Aurora, operated on 33 Industry Street till approximately 88. In 85, we purchased 70 Mary Street from the town of Aurora. My parents built the building that we're operating out of now, as well as 4 other buildings, and operated 2 other businesses. One, Aurora You Keep the Key Mini Storage, which is still operational. The third operation being Aurora Auction Services, which is now closed down due to the retirement of my parents. We sold to the owner in 2012. Upon them taking possession, the house was rented out to one set of tenants at that time, and the commercial property, I'll call, which is the Quonset hut, and the adjacent compound area was rented out to a commercial construction business with dump trucks, excavating equipment, floats, etc. They operated there for a short time. After they left, the tenants also left in the house. The 2 rental parcels of the property have always been, to the best of my knowledge, not interactive with each other, 2 separate parties. The family moved out of the home, and then it was subsequently rented again after a brief period of time. The Quonset hut and compound area was then rented to a roofing operation. They operated out of there once again for a short time. On numerous occasions, there was burning of used building materials and shingles. They used the property adjacent to the Quonset hut, the compound area, I'll call it, for storage. The burning of the materials, including the shingles, was very noxious, black smoke, etc. I know this isn't pertaining to completely to what we're up the application, but I'm just working my way towards that. After those people moved out, there was another operation that moved in, a towing company, in which, after a short stay there was a fire which involved 4 vehicles burning in the middle of the night. There was a very in-depth investigation done with those vehicles, and after the fire marshal and the police were finished, the vehicles were left there unattended, disassembled, quite unsightly. Eventually they were removed from the property. I've passed on photos, both aerial and photos that I've taken myself, of large scorch marks on the ground, and what I feel would be where diesel fuel, hydraulic oil, engine coolant has been leached into the ground, and there hasn't been anything done with that area. This took place, the fire took place in the end of March 2017. These marks are still visible on the ground. That's one concern, that hasn't been adhered to, and that's why myself, being the property next door to 33 Industry Street, where JM Luxury Auto Parts now conducts business, I have a concern not for them, because they are not in any way associated with anything that happened prior to them moving in, but I have an environmental concern for my property, as well as the water table in Aurora, which is very high in that area. And the said property, as well as mine, does border on the ecological significant groundwater protection zone. So that's, anything that may penetrate the ground could possibly get into our water source. I have submitted some photos, as I said. I've taken photos periodically throughout the time that JM Luxury has operated business. The first ones that I've provided are on August 27th, 2017. The first photo shows vehicles parked in front of the scorched area. Okay, yes, please, thank you. Oh, yeah, that's the ones that I have. Pardon me, Madam Chair. These are the vehicles I mentioned that were burnt. As you can see, they were left dismantled for approximately 2 to 3 weeks, and eventually they were removed from the property. And as I say, that area that that the vehicles were burnt in has been damaged, in my opinion, from the fire. So there could be an environmental issue there already. And once again, I want to stress the fact that JM Luxury Auto Parts is in no way associated with this. This photo shows some of the wreckage again, and this is a photo was taken on April the 6th, 2017. As I say, to the best of my knowledge, the fire occurred about March 29th. the area that I mentioned is there directly in front of the Mercedes. That area where the fluids, toxic chemicals from the fire, I feel has great potential to leach into the ground, and that area is still visible today. So that raises a concern, and once again I want to stress the fact that this was prior to JM Luxury becoming a tenant at 33 Industry Street. These photos were taken September the 10th, 2017. In the top photo, you can see that batteries are left uncovered in an exposed area. Being from the automotive trade, I have a great knowledge of this, and as a battery is used in its regular environment, acid does come off as a gas in the battery. These batteries sitting out on the ground have a great potential in rain, dampness, for the acid to run into the ground, and I feel this is unsafe, not a good thing for the environment. The lower picture is also September the 10th, 2017. The fence that you can see with the windbreak is my fence from my property. You can see the height of the vehicles in comparison to the fence, and it's quite an unsightly thing. I look out my office window, my lunchroom window, or in my parking lot, you can see this. Numerous people have commented around town, and I did not mention, but I've been in the town for 53 years, so I've seen a lot of changes, and Aurora is a great town, and I don't want to see anything happen to our water or our environment, and I don't feel that something like this is what the residents of Aurora want to look at. I don't feel that is outdoor storage. In our storage business, we have outdoor storage. Everything is, parked properly, and it's not a displeasure to look at. That's not outside storage as far as I'm concerned. That's a scrapyard. Parking a vehicle for storage or repairs, such as my case, and outdoor storage is allowed. Outdoor storage is allowed on that property, zoning being M1A, is fine. But to me, that's a scrapyard and very unsightly. Myself and the citizens here and others that couldn't attend, we don't have any issue with someone running a business there, but we feel that should conform, and we don't feel that vehicle salvage is the proper thing to be operated in town and on that particular unit or on that particular property.
Mr. Bondy, while you're doing that, I'm going to just interrupt, if you don't mind, for a question of clarification. And I'll perhaps ask this of staff or the applicant. These photographs you're showing us are labeled with the current tenant company name. Did I understand the applicant to say that this current tenant would be vacating the property in the very near future? Did I hear that?
Yes.
Okay. So these problems, hopefully, when the tenant goes, some of these problems go away with them. Okay, so again, just for clarification, is the intention then for the applicant to operate on the property on their own or lease to a different tenant other than JA Luxury? Or does that, if that's not relevant, it's not relevant, but you'll have to come to the microphone, Mr. Stokes. I'm sorry, I want to give these pictures their proper weight, but if this tenant is leaving, then maybe they don't.
Yes.
My point.
Thank you. Brian Stokes for the owner. The owner has no intention of operating a business himself out of this property. It will be tenanted again. may or may not be this type of a business. It's just depends on the available tenants, I guess, as far as that's concerned. So no, there are no immediate plans to do anything with this property other than to remove this tenant.
This current tenant, has their lease been terminated and they are moving?
I believe that their lease is naturally terminated at the, is it June? I don't recall if it's June or not, but under the circumstances, we will be entering into discussions with them to leave the property early.
To leave early?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And as just as another point of clarification, a lot of the photographs you've seen were the condition of, I guess, the condition of this property prior to this tenant occupying the property.
Okay.
So.
And I realize the historical value, Mr. Bondi, and I'm not discounting your presentation at all. I just wanted to, even reading the reports, I had some struggle with the ownership and the occupancy issues. So thank you, committee, for indulging me to get that clarification.
I'd like to correct the last comment in regard to the photos that aren't relevant to the current tenant. These are relevant. The only ones that are not relevant, as I expressed, were the first two with the tow trucks. They are totally not relevant, and I've mentioned that numerous times. These photos that I showed you after the tow truck photos, 100% is when JM Luxury Auto Parts was operational and still is operational. Okay, thank you. These next photos, the top photo was taken September 11th, 2017. Might be a little bit difficult to see, but you can see where there's actually automotive car parts buried in the ground. For what reason? I can't understand that. It's not that they've been set there and settled. They're actually buried and partially covered with dirt. That area, to the best of my knowledge, I may have some other photos, but I have several, has been covered with plywood and then covered with metal crates, which can be seen in the lower picture. And then tires and recovered automotive parts have been placed on top of that, in my feeling, to conceal what's buried in the ground. These photos taken September 27th, the lower being a burned out vehicle. It's in my opinion that a burned out vehicle such as that, left out in the elements, the rainwater gets on it. After a fire, to the best of my knowledge, everything is toxic. So now that water is leaching into the ground, and that vehicle in that particular photo is probably less than a foot from my property line. And my big concern is that any lack of respect and treatment of the environment, the ground source water, this leaches onto my property, and then I end up having a very large dilemma if there's a cleanup necessary. The area separating the two properties is the wooden fence, which the previous gentleman did show, and then there's a grassed area 4 to 5 feet wide. The next photo, the top one of the fuel tanks, is September 2017. You can see the fuel tanks are stored outside, not covered with anything. There is a building there. Something like that, if it is required, should be kept up off the ground. You can see the gas tank filler neck laying down on the ground. Any water that's able to get into the gas tank and then in turn leach out the open lines into the ground. On the lower portion, the lower photo, the gas tank on the left, you can actually see the filler neck in which the cap has been removed, and Reinforcing my previous statement that the water is going to run in there when it rains, and it's going to come out the lines on the bottom, leach into the ground. That fence is the fence separating 33 Industry Street from my property, 70 Mary Street. Once again, raising a concern for the environment. The next photo, the top photo, shows a gentleman, I assume operates the business, JM Luxury Auto Parts. In fact, using a forklift to raise a vehicle off the ground, which in turn he worked on. Very unsafe practice, and the town, to the best of my knowledge, the bylaw states that, you know, in a commercial area, operating a business, automotive repair, if they are licensed for automotive repair, I don't feel that they are, because they're not advertising that they're a garage. You're not, according to town bylaws, to be working in the parking lot. The lower picture, May 16th, 2018. So a couple of months later, once again, working in the parking lot, the gentleman proceeded to do a brake job on that vehicle. That is a plated vehicle, so whether he's repairing it for himself, family member, it's not for me to judge. But if it's being repaired outside, it's not supposed to be done. It could be somebody off the street, a customer, client. Vehicle was driven onto the property, repaired outside. Should be a licensed technician, and they're operating once again outside.
Thank you. Mr. Bondi, so in the interest of time, I think the points have been made, as I said, about some of the repetition. And we are now of the knowledge that this particular business may not be operating in amongst many, many standards incorrectly. But if they are vacating, then maybe that's not as relevant to this particular application. I think it's important information, and I think it needs to be in the right hands. And I would ask whether reports have been made to the Ministry of the Environment, the Ministry of Labor, and/or the Town Bylaw Department of any of these unsafe activities. I would hope that as citizens, some of this has been reported, and I would hope that some of it's being reviewed. But it's not their application. They are not the company before us today, so we have little authority to deal with how they run their business or have ran their business. So maybe I'll ask you to bring it back to this particular application, if you don't mind. Thank you.
I was in contact with bylaws initially after the first photos of the scrap cars being stored. There was, I would say, a minimal amount of investigation done. I then contacted York Region Water Protection. They in turn contacted the MOE CC. It took 6 months for the MOE CC to come and do an inspection. I have emails, but I don't know the exact dates, but I made the calls to the MOECC. Actually, the York Region contacted them. As I say, it took 6 months. It was summer, then it became March. Snow on the ground that day. Back to the buried car parts, which I feel there's a very good chance they're still there. They're just concealed. They weren't able to inspect those, and I was not consulted as to where the location was on the property. They did come out, and yes, they did do an inspection. There was some of the proper paperwork, a generator license, which allows them to recycle fluids, etc. There was no, as I say, no consultation with myself so that I could direct them in the correct area to look and see if those parts are there.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I mean, I can't speak to how those agencies do their
No.
business, but what I hear from you is you've made attempts
Yes.
to put this into the hands of the appropriate agencies that can deal with those issues, including the Town of Aurora
Yes.
Bylaw Department, and thank you for doing that. I live in the town as well. But again, now I'll ask you to address your comments, any further comments to us in relation to the specific application in front of us, please.
Okay. Towards the specific application, Madam Chair, we don't feel, myself and the property owners and citizens in the nearby area, that a salvage yard would fall under a outdoor storage category, okay? Due to the unsightly mess and as far as the environment is concerned. If JM Luxury Auto Parts is vacating the premises when their lease is up or terminated, that's not relevant to myself. The application is already been submitted, so it's my feeling, and I think also of the citizens, that a similar business is going to move in there. Otherwise, there would be no reason for them to apply for this type of minor variation. And as far as the minor variation is concerned, I personally, and I feel most of the other folks here that are with me tonight, don't feel that it's a minor variation from our standpoint. It's more of a zoning change. And to operate a similar business as to what is operating there now, I can't assume what's going to happen, but if the application is looking to operate something similar, parts recovery, it's going to go the same direction, okay? And if I could just ask a question through you, Madam Chair, and then I'll take my seat again. The applicant on the application, file number MV-208-34, the applicant is 2233754 Ontario Incorporated. Is that indeed the property owner?
Sorry. We were given, which I presume is extracts from the ownership documentation, that this property was purchased by 2233757 from Bondi on February 12th of 2012. So given the information we have to date, I'm going to say yes, the applicant is the owner. Perhaps I could just get a nod from that from the representatives of the... Yes.
Have a look at the application copy that I received in the mail, which reads, the applicant is 2233754 Incorporated, not 2233757.
Thank you. I'll ask the representatives of the company or the planning consultant whose document I'm looking at to step forward and maybe respond to that. No?
Oh, I believe it was a typo on the part of the town, and we corrected it as soon as we saw it come through our office.
Thank you. Then I'll ask staff to clarify that. Thank you.
Through the chair, the ownership is the one that is provided in the packages. The public notice did have a different owner as the recommendation package. On the planning justification provided by the applicant, I was in contact with the applicant that the owner through their planning rationale was incorrect. However, the owner provided through the application form which was submitted to the Town of Aurora was the correct owner to the property.
So that was a long way of saying it was a typo? Sorry, just for my clarification, give me a nod if I'm...
Yes, it was a typo. However, the rationale and the variance application form had two different owners, so the applicant did clarify which one was the correct one.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Does that clear that up a bit for you?
Yes, slightly. Being that, if you'll pardon me, this is a legal document, so to speak, the application. I would think that parties operating on the owner's behalf would have read this and noticed the typo. No, humans make mistakes, don't get me wrong. So it's just something I wanted to bring up to see indeed who the applicant, in this case, is indeed the owner, but this is the incorrect number.
Okay, thank you, and staff have made note of that, and I'm sure we can get that cleaned up. Yeah, thank you.
Once again, I won't take up too much more of your time. I do have and have provided the Planning Department and Mr. Greco with the Committee of Adjustment a signed petition from the local people that are in opposition mainly with the application, which I am. I know I've stressed what's happened at the property with prior tenants and the current tenant. The current tenant is vacating, but our concern is with the operation of a very similar business operating as basically a salvage yard, which I feel and my colleagues feel that should not be allowed. In our opinion, we totally object to such a thing.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for a very well-planned presentation, obviously. Any other members of the public that would like to come forward and speak?
And for the presenters to say that they've been good landlords, I think is ridiculous. When cars are burning and stuff's leaching into the soil and all that kind of stuff in our neighborhood.
I'm getting away from staff here.
Through the chair, can you please identify yourself?
Yes, Harold McDonald. So we're 11 Mary Street. I just don't think, I didn't even know that a scrapyard was allowed in the town. Obviously, there's other businesses in the town. There's the lumberyard's just down the road from there. My mom's house is there. There's a mix of residential, and to have a scrapyard that's leaching out all kinds of stuff, I would ask for a phase 1 or a phase 2 SOLS report before I approved anything, which I've had to do in the town when I've done other development. I think you can't ignore the history of the people renting the place. I'd love to know if he's paying residential taxes, or if he's paying commercial taxes, or if the parcel is split up between the two. Is it a commercial piece of property? Is it residential? It's both. Are the taxes purely residential, or are they combined?
Okay, just that, again, not really relevant to the application.
Yeah.
However, because that's my profession, property tax assessment professional, I had the same question when I saw the document from the planner. That's very easily checked. The assessment roll is right out there on the counter, accessible to the public. Please feel free to have a look at it. They should be paying commercial tax. There's no question.
Right.
If they're not, they should be. And that
Right. So my
there are
mom has
mechanisms.
a 1,100 square foot house down the road. She's paying $6,000 in taxes. I'm sure that this one is paying the same amount in taxes.
Well, again,
Actually,
that's not completely relevant to the application, so we won't dwell on that, but please.
All I'm trying to
Bring
just
that
bring
to
the applicant, if it really is the applicant, the number company,
Sure.
Is not exactly a great landlord and should not be trusted.
Well, again, I'm going to interrupt because I'm not going to allow you to disparage any of the applicants or anyone in the room in that manner.
All I'm saying is that they're saying that they've got rid of this scrapyard guy. They're continuing on with the application. They're obviously going to rent it to another scrapyard.
Well,
Otherwise, why wouldn't you withdraw the application?
Okay.
Anyways, we obviously have concerns from many of the members of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I do, ladies and gentlemen, I will keep us on point, and again, I won't allow anyone to disparage anyone who's in the room, their business or their personality. That's not appropriate in this setting. Anyone else like to come forward?
My name's Rick Armstrong. I live at 5 Mary Street. I've been there at least 36 years. I just don't feel we should continue with this discussion at the moment in light of that new information that the tenant is moving out. So this should not go any further ahead at all. And I'm here supporting our good neighbor, Ted Bundy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public? Yep, come on forward.
Hi, it's Jason Hyatt. I own a property very near that at Industrial. I have issues with both the environment and leaching through.
We do just need the address. Sorry, Mr. Hyde.
17 Industrial.
17, thank you.
I have no discourse towards the owner or any such, but I do not think that that proposal is a great value to the area in general, as the town has spent a lot of time, effort, unbelievable amount of time trying to bring the neighborhood up in value. I cannot think of a lower level of use than salvage. I was thinking garbage dump, but that might be similar. So I don't think it would be in the town's interest to approve. It would degrade my property, which I might have legal recourse or adjustment from the town required to devalue my property, as I was hoping to upgrade the property value area and see the use which the town has commended and proposed for over 10 years into the concourse area. To propose a variance into scrapyard similar to a garbage dump would devalue my property and the expectations of reasonable enjoyment of my property over time. I'd be rather upset to see the devaluation in the area by allowing this variance, and I would have serious considerations as to who spearheaded this in devaluing the area for many landowners with some very, interesting assets under play, including the last environmental damage, which the town bought the land across the street to remove environmental damage. No one was allowed to buy it because of environmental damage, yet the town bought it, and now they're willing to let more environmental damage go on in the area without any effort to allay the fears of the other landlords in the area. I value my property. I've had to pay assessments, environmental assessments. Great money has been spent to prevent environmental damage to my property. And any environmental damage that might come again to my property from the town's efforts would certainly be met in a legalistic format. Just to let you know, I'm not going to take environmental damage lightly, considering how much the town makes me spend to prove there's no environmental damage. So if you don't want environmental damage, then why would you act to push more chemicals or what have you? I don't want a garbage dump down the street from my property, which I paid good money for, and continue to progress to upgrade the property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to come forward with their comments? Okay. So I'm going to close the public part of the meeting, and I'm going to look to the committee for a couple of things. I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask any burning questions you may have, although do recall that we do have a recommendation to defer the application. We also have the willingness of the applicant to accept a deferral at this time, so it will be coming forward again. Possibly, or not, but there will be an opportunity for a committee that follows ours if anything comes forward. But I don't want to not give you the chance for any clarifications. So let's start at David's end this time. Thank you.
My humble opinion, looking at this, I have lots of questions, but it comes to just few facts which I'm getting from even staff support. The use is not even listed. It's not even identified. Okay. The use is not even listed. It's not even identified. It's not even defined. And without this, there are no parameters. As is indicated here, there are no parameters exist to delineate what use entails and what it does not. And the bottom line is that this can be problematic from a regulation and enforcement point of view. So my point of view is defer. Otherwise, we'll just be going around and around because it cannot be put in any zoning or any category. So you see, and I even surprised why it came even at this stage when it's not even defined, it's not even clear. It would have been, first of all, this to be resolved before it even comes to the committee.
Yeah, so I'll ask you then to just hold that thought and perhaps put forward the motion for deferral with some comments with it if you wish, and look for a seconder, David. But any questions then of clarification before you would be voting on a motion? Roy, how about you at this point?
Well, I'm quite clear.
Okay, all right. I'll go to this end then.
Thank you, and through the chair. So first, I think we did the right thing this evening by suggesting that Mr. Stone, on behalf of the applicant, we hear your presentation, and also members of the public who have raised some concerns, because I think that's going to help us perhaps, depending upon what motion does come forward, help set some direction through staff back to the applicant in what we should be looking at if and when this comes forward. That's number one, first comment. And along the lines of, I don't think it would be inappropriate if this application continues, that we might, as a condition, want to include a phase 1 EA and potentially out of that a phase 2, depending on what comes forward. Because what we're looking for is a variance for use. And I think the concerns that have been raised are significant enough from what I've seen to make that a suggestion through staff back to the applicant to bring forward. In terms of clarification, I'm still a little bit confused on Mr. Stone. Can I ask you, you're acting on behalf of the applicant, correct? I want clarity again on ownership. Are you acting on behalf of an applicant or the owner?
I am retained by the registered owner of the property, which is the Ontario company.
Okay. That helps me here. And for clarification then, was it the owner who then met with the region to come up with the plan that we have in here, the risk management?
I would have to defer to the ownership as to what precipitated the risk management plan, but clearly it was completed and filed to the registered property owner.
Because the reference here that I see from the region is to a Mr. V. Priestley.
Right.
Is there a connection between Mr. Priestley and the ownership?
I believe that there is, yes, and perhaps Mr. Stokes or Ms. Carew can explain that relationship.
Thank you.
Hi, Brian Stokes for the owner. I haven't seen the risk management plan as you're looking at it, but if a V. Priestley signed it, that's Victor Priestley, and he is the 100% owner of the numbered company that owns the property. So to answer your first question, which was it precipitated by the owner, I would have to say yes, if he signed it.
Okay. Yeah, because the reference that I'm looking at dated November the 1st, 2018 from the region is to Mr. Vic Priestley Contracting Limited. And it refers to it is in the first line there, it says, "You have received this letter because Vic Priestley Contracting Limited is named as the property owner of this site."
Yes.
So,
I read that as well. I do recall that now that you read it out loud. And I did make that correction because Vic Priestley Contracting Limited has never owned that property and is not the owner of that property. So the region, in their dialogue back to us, made that assumption in error.
okay, so it is the numbered company then?
Absolutely, 100%.
I see. Which is owned by Vic Priestley, if
The
I'm
numbered
correct.
company is owned by Mr.
Right,
Priestley. Yes.
okay. Then that helps me tremendously. Thank you, Mr. Stokes. Appreciate that clarification. I'm just going to go to the staff report, and Antonio, I want to make sure that there's no confusion. That the staff report dated January the 4th, 2019. When we talk about the official plan item on page 2, number 1, staff requires additional information regarding the existing uses on site. Planning staff cannot conclude at this time if the subject variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. With Mr. Stone, it appeared that there has been some discussion with staff and that this has been somewhat resolved. But when I read this staff report, and that's basically repeated for item 2 on page 3, and again on page 3, item 3, for example, planning staff are of the opinion that it cannot be determined at this time if the zoning, if the variance is desirable and appropriate development for or use of the land. Again, is it minor in nature? Staff, again, are of the opinion that it cannot be determined at this time if the variance is minor in nature. So I just want to make sure that that staff report hasn't changed or hasn't been modified in any way following any additional discussions with the applicant.
Through the chair, to my knowledge, this is the most up-to-date staff report. I guess the intention of these 3 points are further, you'll see under section 3, is the variance desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land. The last portion there, if what's been proposed is appropriate and if the non-residential use would be classified as a scrap or salvage yard. So they're looking for clarification on what exactly is there. Having said that, they also, as David had touched on before, it's a brand new proposed use that's not defined, and I think that's something we want to clarify before we move forward with preparing a recommendation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. And that is when we come back to the top page here is planning staff requests that the minor variance application be deferred. That and for some other maybe new information that's come forward tonight is part and parcel the reason for that request from staff.
Through the chair, yes.
I guess I'm just going to make a few comments. And number one, to start with, again, I was really confused, even through the clarification, as to why this application is even here when JMM Luxury is going to vacate the site, which to me makes me suspicious that the same usage is going to be there but run by somebody else. So I don't understand that. The other part that has become abundantly clear here this evening is that we have some serious environmental issues on this site. and they totally need to be addressed. And when I look at Mr. Stone's recommendations, reconditions, totally inadequate. I mean, this site, in my view, based on previous experience in my work environment, needs a complete environmental review and site inspection and potentially a cleanup. So the idea of even going forward with this to say it's okay to do this kind of stuff here in future makes no sense from my perspective. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, if anything, this should be deferred, but I can even think of other options for this site as well. But I won't be here around the next time. So that's my point.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to look for a motion at this point. I think lots of discussion, lots of suggestions. So I'd like us to start to craft a motion. Feel free, David.
That this application be deferred because there are a lot of issues which need to be resolved. We don't know the land use. That's why I can even see here things like environmental reports are not even being suggested because we don't know what land use is, what application should be. So we need to give the town staff and the applicant to sit down, look at the land use and come up with what type of application should be. And in that way, they will have a way how to have it regulated, you know, and do all the work which is required by enforcement and so on. In this case, it's very hard to enforce.
So before I look for a seconder for a motion to strictly defer, I wonder if you might accept a friendly amendment to just add a condition on there that the staff take into consideration, that the staff and the applicant in future take into consideration all of the concerns that have been expressed here tonight by the public and in terms of environmental use, impact, those things are important and they need to be considered in whatever happens. So just a friendly amendment, if you wouldn't mind, to ask staff to take into consideration the comments that have been provided tonight. Okay, is that all right? So unless anyone else has any other friendly amendments, we look for a seconder to that. All right.
Second, Madam Chair.
All right, all in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much for everybody's time. We still have one more to deal with, so don't run off. Riveting stuff, right? Minor variance application for 23 Rubin Street, file MV 2018-36. The purpose of this application has 4 parts to it. Part A, a permit to reduce an easterly exterior side yard setback to 4.45 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 1.55 meters. Part B is to permit an eaves projection into the easterly exterior side yard to 1.85 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 1.15 meters. Part C, to permit a reduced southerly rear yard setback to 2.85 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 4.65 meters. And Part D, to permit an eaves projection into the southerly rear yard to 2.55 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 1.85 meters. Planning Division have reviewed the application and have provided conditions. Building Division have done a preliminary zoning review. Engineering has reviewed the application and provided conditions. Operational Services has reviewed it and is subject to conditions. Central York Fire Electric Utilities in the region of York also reviewed the application and provided no comments. And just before I call the applicant forward, we did receive very late in the day today, I believe it was, a letter of support from a resident. Now I can't even find it. Anybody got it handy? Thank you. I don't believe they're here, so we have received a letter of support for this application from the owners of 120 Temperance Street, and that is on the record. Applicant or agent for this one, please? Thank you. Come on forward. Oh, careful. Yeah.
Honorable Madam Chair, esteemed committee members, Antonio, Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Planner over there, Matthew. My name is Jordan Colm. I know you guys know me a little bit, and I'm representing the client as the agent and builder. And I'm going to keep it short because, well, it's a cold and snowy night, and I think we've been here quite a bit. The main reason I'm keeping it short is because, as you know, this is, I believe, the first minor variance application in the stable neighborhoods, if I'm not mistaken. Because of the stable neighborhoods, there's an intensive vetting process during the site plan review by Matthew himself. There were numerous iterations that we went through to arrive at the plans that we have that are submitted before you. And out of that came that we've conducted, obviously, an arborist report. You've seen the comments from the town. There's no trees being torn down. We're working with the existing grades, which satisfied Sabir and engineering. I think the most telling part is whether or not this addition has any significant impact on neighbors. And as you mentioned, you received a letter in support. I have the letter here. I don't know if it's necessary to put on the overhead. If everyone's read it on the committee, has everyone had a chance to peruse the letter? I can throw it on, but just for members of the public, I suppose. There you go. So the letter itself was written by Jacqueline Stewart and Allison Stewart. They're the neighbors to the immediate south, which would be they would obviously suffer the most impact of the building. And because of that, they're in support of it, which is a very good thing for my client, obviously. Again, it's a one-story building with a mudroom. The house itself is over 100 years old, and they've never owned a garage. My client acquired the property just a few short years ago, and they would desire a garage. They have some nice automobiles, and they'd like to put them in the garage for storage and keep them out of the way. I think finally, through the site plan review process, it's demonstrated that the most significant point in my mind is that the application is minor in nature, which it was deemed minor in nature. And ultimately, I'd like to let the application rest on the merits of what's been submitted to you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to this application? Okay. Please come forward again, so I'll get you to have a seat. Sure. Name and address, please, and give us your comments. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi. Pull that mic down a bit. Yeah,
all right.
Thanks.
So I'm Angela Reeves, and I live at Angela Reeves. I live at 119 Temperance Street. So I just more need some answers, because I don't have an issue with residents getting garages at all. What I am concerned about is losing parking. And what I'm not sure about from the diagram is there's there's access to a two-car driveway from Temperance already in the picture, and it looks like it's going to be extended further along by, I don't know, is that 50, 60 feet? I'm not sure. Is there going to be, like, is that really taking away parking? Here's a picture of what the street looks like with two cars in front of the house. If I can put it here, yeah. I'm not sure. Right, so this is my driveway here. There's the greenhouse, that's 120, that was the letter that you just read. This is the house in question. So this is Temperance Street, that's Rubin Street. The parking for Rubin is on Temperance. It's already got, so there's two cars here. The access to their drive is behind those two cars. Looks like we're going to take the driveway all the way up there, and if we do, it's a very short street. There's the corner here. Past the greenhouse, that is their driveway, so you can't go there. this is all the parking on the street, then we're at a stop sign at Kennedy and Temperance. So is it really eliminating parking on this street? Because that's not in the best interest of the community, I don't think. I have no issues with garages being placed and they certainly have the room to have a two-car garage there. I think without taking any parking from the street. Now I'm talking, I don't know if the parking has been eliminated or not, but that would be my concern.
Okay, I've made note of your question, and we'll have staff address that when we're finished with the comments.
I think there
else?
is room to go on the owner's property to even go in and get around, or even to extend what the current parking, the two driveway is, to extend that by 10 or 15 feet so that they could go around without eliminating all the spots on the street.
Okay.
But again, those are my questions. I'm not sure.
Thank you. I'll
Thank you so
get
much.
staff to address those. Thanks very much. Do you want staff? Would you like to speak to street parking at this point?
Through the chair, so my understanding of this application, I will defer to the applicant if need be. They are proposing to actually remove their existing driveway and put in a new one, as you'll see that 6-meter wide portion on the left-hand side of the screen. So they're not keeping the existing driveway and adding another driveway. So in theory, the previous driveway could be used for that on-street parking as well. However, the on-street parking isn't regulated by our zoning bylaw, so that is something that is can't really be considered at this meeting. But having said that, given that the driveway is being shifted and moved and the old one is being removed, that still maintains some parking there, if that alleviates your concern at all.
Okay, you can't do this. No, I'm sorry. You can't do that because it's not recorded when you're sitting in the audience. So I think you asked about parking, and I think staff have explained to the best. Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else from the public on this one? Please come forward, sir.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is David Gregg. I live at 27 Rubin Street.
Okay. Can you just lift the microphone for me a bit? Thank you.
Sure. And I am the property west of number 23. So I share a border with number 23. And my concern is the information that we have shows a lot 23, but it doesn't really show the orientation of the building on lot 23. It's just a big gray area. And the way the building is oriented, the northwest corner is like it is impossible unless you're George Shrinks or you are Flat Stanley, who are both characters maybe not everybody's familiar with, but they're heroes of mine. It is impossible to get around the building without stepping in my property, because the corner of the building on 23 is 0.11 feet, which works out, which the whole idea of using imperial is crazy, but if you convert it to metric, it's 35 millimeters. And 35 millimeters is about 1.25 inches, or 1.1 inches.
I wonder, could we get staff to put that site plan map back up there then, and perhaps you could point to that corner for us? Would that be helpful? I think I see it here too, but yeah. He's talking.
Doesn't show up very well, does it? There's a lot of scribbles on this survey, but I said, did I say 33? It's 34, 0.034 meters, which is not very much room. Now, because all of the action here takes place on the variance and all this is affected by the south and by the east, it may seem as though anything happening on the west is not an issue. However, I lived at 27 Reuben for 25 years, and for at least 20 of those years, I've been trying to explain to people where the property line is. And I've had, we left for a weekend or something to go to North Bay to my in-laws. We came back, and the neighbors, these are previous neighbors, had actually trimmed trees and set up a hammock in my yard, saying, this is part of our property. And I said, I don't think so. I said, I have saved I preserved, because I worked in construction for 40 years or something, and survey stakes are very important. They're sacred. So I know where all the survey stakes are. And if you stand at the survey stake on the right at Reuben Street on the north end.
Point on the map for me, please. I can't. Yeah, touch the map with the spot that you're talking about.
There's a survey stake here.
Okay.
And there's the end of a fence right here, and there are ties. You know.
And he lives here.
The existing building.
Okay.
Also, the building at cemetery, and the end of the fence is bang on with the ties are. So here on the north end, we end up with a situation of 34 millimeters. It would be virtually impossible to set up a fence, because I don't think you can put a fence within 34 millimeters of somebody's property. I understand. Anyway, this battle has been going on it's not really a battle, but I don't want to be the angry pajamas or the nasty neighbor, but I keep saying to people, see, this is the line. I'm over here, you're over there. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And the place was rented for several years, and there was a nasty exchange that finally scared them over on their side for a while. But the property was sold to us by a developer, I guess you call him, and he sold this to the current owner.
Okay.
And at least the developer said, look, this is the property line. And when the new landscaping was done, it looked like they used a laser beam to put in the new sod. It was right on the property line.
Okay.
And I thought, well, this should be sufficient. However, the present owner moved in and had been gradually encroaching. They set up a trellis type affair. I don't know what else you call it. It's like it's a trellis, I guess. It's supposed to be a divider between the properties. And I wasn't around when they did it. But when I came back, I looked at it and I thought, looks pretty close to me. So of the 4 posts they put in, one of them was over the property line. And recently, there have been piles of debris, wheelbarrow loads of debris dumped on my side. And anyway, I thought, okay, I'll try to be diplomatic here. So I went to Princess Auto and I bought driveway markers. And I thought, they're markers, everybody recognizes what they are. And I set them up on the property line. The 3 at the back, even though they ignore them, they didn't touch them, but the 3 at the front disappeared. And I thought, these are my markers on my property. But I guess the idea to get, this is very frustrating. Anyway, the point of all this is, I mean, it's bizarre, but the point of all this is, by the looks of what they intend to do here, they're taking a small property and they're getting permission to overbuild because they have to have something bigger for whatever reason, who knows. And I can only imagine that this is going to put pressure on expanding, and I'm going to have a harder time explaining that you aren't Flat Stanley, so you're not going to be able to walk around my house without, it wouldn't be a problem walking around. I don't really care, but I do care when they start dumping their garbage and completely ignoring the boundary, because I'm sure that over time they're just going to creep right into the yard.
Okay, so I have to, sorry, for my own clarification, I have to understand. The area that the gentleman is talking about that's so tight and close to his lot, that's not one of the variances, though, that we're dealing with, is it?
Through the chair, no.
Okay.
The variants are focused towards the southeast
The other part
corner
of the property. Okay. So I hear your concerns, and I mean, it would concern me as well. But what you do need to understand is that's not what we're being asked to deal with tonight.
Yes.
So we have to deal with what we are being asked to deal with. Your issues, though, do need to be brought to the town, and there are people here that will talk to you about that. You and your neighbor have to work that out. But unfortunately, we don't have the jurisdiction to deal with that problem here tonight. Well,
No.
I wish we could help you, but we truly can't.
But I have made it. Does this statement go anywhere? Does it mean anything?
This is a public record, and the clerk's office will have a record now that you have a different concern with your property.
Yes, ma'am.
But you need to pursue that. You need to talk to the bylaw people. I'm not sure myself. I don't know all the processes in the town here. I would start with coming to speak to the clerk, that you've put comments on the record and now you'd like some direction on how you deal with that, or customer service right at the front during regular business hours may be able to send you in an appropriate direction.
Good.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else would like to speak to this application? Okay, seeing no comments, then I will open it up to the committee for comments, questions. Excuse me, sir. Sorry, we're still carrying on in a meeting here. Thank you. Well, okay. Sorry, go ahead, David.
The one you had? This one here? Yeah. Yeah, the site plan is something. Just one for clarification. If you zoom it out again the way you did last time. So I cannot clearly see which one is the existing driveway there. Because I'm seeing, so that's the building. Yeah, that's the existing building. But where is the existing driveway? So what I'm looking at is, where is the existing driveway and where is the proposed driveway? Ah. Okay.
Through the chair, this is a little bit of an earlier iteration, but you can see right here, this is where the existing driveway is.
Okay.
This walkway has been modified through the site plan control process, but the proposed driveway is over here, and it's 6 meters wide proposed. So they're proposing to remove this driveway and put this one.
So is it the driveway plus the walkway, both of them?
Through the chair, the applicant is also proposing a walkway.
So it should be. So can you do again?
You'll see, and you'll see this is the walkway here, and this is the driveway.
So why? Okay. So can I assume between the walkway and the driveway on the lower portion there's a green space, sort of that white block, sort of, is it separating the walkway from the driveway?
Through the chair, yes, that was something that was contemplated, as you'll see from the previous iteration to this this more final iteration through the site plan control process. It was originally proposed to be that wide, but in order to scale down the width of the face of what that would create over there, as well as to keep the driveway in conformity with the town zoning bylaw, they've indicated planter on here, but it could be green space as well.
And how wide is the walkway, proposed walkway? So, okay, the driveway is 6 meters, you said?
Through the chair, I'll defer to the agent for that.
Leave that one there, I think, yeah. So how wide is the driveway and how wide is the walkway?
The driveway is within the zoning bylaw. It's 24 feet. The walkway is 12 feet, 5 inches and a half.
So it's half the size of the... Yeah, okay. My concern is why you have such a wide driveway, which is maybe double garage, and then you have beside it a walkway also connecting to the road. Because usually you would see, I'm just thinking it would be acceptable not to have the walkway connect directly to the road, but go towards the driveway.
Certainly.
So here we're having two sort of openings.
I can speak to that for certain. There is a proposed mudroom, which is in between the addition of the garage to the house. That walkway provides access to the mudroom. Otherwise, they're walking on grass or otherwise mud. So it's pretty much necessary to have a walkway to access the mudroom. I'd also like to mention that because the building is over 100 years old, obviously it has historical significance, that my client is and certainly values the aesthetic of the building currently, and they want to maintain that aesthetic. They're quite adamant about that.
Anyway, I'm just surprised. Thank you.
Without that walkway, the access to the mudroom would be problematic, because instead of walking on what would be an interlocking surface, that they'd be walking on, well, I guess grass or mud. So obviously it'll be a high traffic area into the mudroom from the garage, carrying in groceries and household effects, of course.
Through the chair, I might have something to voice to your concern. Through the site plan control process, we've looked at all this, and that was a concern I had as well with the very wide driveway. Having said that, my initial concern was that there would be more parked cars on there. However, they would have to obtain a curb cut for that portion, which right now is not included in the existing curb. So with the proposed driveway, they would get that curb cut, but it wouldn't facilitate a curb cut for that portion of the driveway, for the walkway, sorry. Further, I did express some concern as to the width. My understanding in talking to the architect was that the owner has children that want to play basketball on that portion of the walkway there, so that's why it's a little bit wider in nature, as opposed to matching the walkway a little more east.
Through the chair, Mr. Colomb, I'm just curious if you can, and I'm picking up on some of the comments from the owner of 27, where he talks about a fence, he talks about a hedge.
Sure.
Just for my own clarification, at that point where the existing home is very, very close to that property line, what is actually there today? Because that survey could have been done months and years and what have you ago. I'm wondering, is there a fence there?
And straight here. So, oh, you already have it up. You're good. So, this area right here, there's a little bit of a fence there, but it's not right there. It's not a gate. It's just fenced off, and my owner quite clearly has stated that do not desire any access there whatsoever. So it's not a walkway. It's not something they ever use nor want to use. If you look at the site plan, this area over here, it demonstrates that there is a gate there that would allow them access to the backyard. So they have no desire or interest to access the house from the west side. That was the concern of the gentleman who came prior.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. And we're not here to argue
certainly
whether or not the fences and the hedges are where they should be or where the hammock was hung. I was just more curious as to whether or not there was actually something physically there today that provides some delineation as to where
there is a fence, but it does not
is.
extend right to the corner of the house. I sense that his frustration, from what I understand historically, the house had upper balcony access and stairs that were recently removed. The house was rented as 2 separate units, so I think the gentleman unfortunately had to suffer the burden of a lot of traffic and some hooliganism. So I'm sure I can understand his frustration, but my client is they're a young family. They have 2 boys, and there's not 2 separate units in the house. It's just a single family home. So
and I guess my comment again on that proposed paver walkway would be, and hearing staff's comment about the boys wanting to play basketball, I would have just had made the suggestion and not understanding that is a short driveway, getting around with groceries and what have you, and then in that door to the proposed mudroom, you just leave that section that, just make it an L shape instead, from the driveway, an L shape back into that front door, and then leave the small section out towards the street, planter or green, whichever. And then, again, I just, I'm sorry I can't get away from it, because it wasn't that long ago that a young fellow, probably 8 or 9 years old, on the street next to where I live, was playing basketball, and his ball went out, and I just came way too close to him for my personal liking, and a whole lot closer than my wife wanted to get to him. So I know kids are kids, and I know what you're trying to do for the family, and I think it makes some sense, because I don't know where else you'd put it, but I kind of caution putting a basketball net up that close to the road. But and the only other comment I wanted to make, and unfortunately he left, we're not looking for a variance for lot coverage. We're not looking for an increase in coverage, which he was concerned about. We're building an addition that I am assuming fits in with the maximum lot coverages here. So I would hazard and say that because it is within the existing regulations for lot coverage, and all we're dealing with is variances for setbacks, that it's less imposing from that perspective. But you've answered my question. My only concern is safety of the kids.
Sees that as a sticking point. My client would be willing to jettison that portion. They just felt aesthetically it was a very pleasing, they wanted to do some planting either side, and it really draws you into that area of the house, and obviously they're going to considerable expense to really expand the house and make it their dream home. So the lady of the household really liked the idea. So
here's the other thing, and maybe Matthew, you can help me on this one, and it speaks to, I'm sorry I forgot her name, but the issue of parking on the street. If we're looking at a driveway cut for the new driveway, there wouldn't be a need to have a depression for the walkway, would there? So we could certainly not lose the on-street parking if there was no curb cut at the walkway point.
Correct.
Through the chair, that's accurate. The town, when they go do the curb cut, would only apply the curb cut that complies with zoning. They would not do 2 curb cuts to facilitate a depression where the proposed walkway is.
And I would imagine there would be a radius on that new driveway as well, coming out to the paved area on Temperance, which again would have a bearing on where that proposed walkway is coming out.
Through the chair, that should be accurate. Again, this plan doesn't go to the street; it goes to the property line. So that's a little bit hard to have a look at. But I would assume that the walkway would continue to the curb line, as does the driveway.
Can I just, sorry, Hank, because it's on this. My concern is, whose responsibility is it to fill in the curb cut from the old driveway? Because people are not going to park, even if that driveway is taken away, which we see that it is, the old one, people aren't going to park there if that curb is still cut. So the town will cut the new curb. Whose responsibility is it to fill in the prior cut? And then it would be obvious that that's parking.
Through the chair, my understanding is that the Parks Department does the curb cuts. I'm assuming that they would fill in the curb, but at this point, I'm not sure.
Thank you. So I may suggest that as a condition, because I think that will help alleviate this lady's concern a little as well. If we fill in the old curb cut, it will be obvious that you can park there where the old driveway used to be. So sure. I'd like that done. Yeah.
Of course. In order to meet the bylaw standards, I believe you're only allowed 1 curb cut. So that curb cut that currently exists can only be repatriated by the town or contractors certified by the town.
Okay.
It's not
fair
the
enough. That's why I asked. Yeah. I didn't know who had to do it, but I just want to be sure it gets done. I don't want you left with 2 curb cuts.
Absolutely, for sure. It's that's actually going to end up being planting that area.
I think we got to let Hank in. Okay. So
it's going to be planting.
Oh, all right. Still on the curb cut? Go ahead, David.
I know you are not very clear, but with this case here,
yes,
it is supposed to be you, not the town, because it's part of the development that it needs to be filled, and that's usually the standard. You don't leave it to the town to deal with it. It's part of your development application because you are closing this and you're opening a new one.
Absolutely.
So you are supposed to do it. And if you are not sure, my proposal, if you are not sure, if we're approving this, we have to make this as a condition that this has to be, you have to build a curb on that old existing driveway.
Creation of the existing curb would, I believe, have to be done, however, by a certified party of the town, because it's municipal property. It's not my client's property, but they're willing to do it and want it done because that area would become planting. So I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want anyone parking on their planting.
Okay, sure. Sorry, Hank. Your turn.
Madam Chair, no, you haven't shortchanged me, and last but not no, I don't really have any comments, but I just want to piggyback on Tom's
concern about the width of the walkway.
Certainly.
And I like the idea of an L shape, I really do. And the other thing, because of its width, I think I heard it was 6 meters. I mean, that's like another driveway. And my concern would always be whether there's a curb there or not, for the possibility of that becoming a parking spot. Just a comment. Oh, the proposed walkway.
Yes.
And so I like Tom's idea of the L shape, not going to the curb. And my concern is more that because of the width of 6 meters, that could easily...
It's not. It's only 12 feet wide.
12 feet wide?
That's it, yeah.
That's wide enough for a car.
That's wide enough for a car.
It is.
It's wide enough for a truck.
Thought you said 6 meters.
No, and I know that. I understand that. But I'm just saying it
6
would be,
meters more than 12 feet.
it's more than enough to overcome the curb cut or the curb with a four-wheel drive vehicle, your typical SUV. Just a comment.
Certainly.
That's all.
I agree. My client has no intention of parking there. They just wanted it for the kids to play basketball. But Tom has a good point. If it was my kids, I have 2 boys, and yeah, they would run straight after that ball. So it's probably not the best idea.
Okay, so before I look for the motion, I did want to advise the committee and yourself as well. There are a number of conditions in here, and I presume you've seen those and you're good with them. And I'm now going to add 2 more to that list. Staff have requested that we add a condition that the owner must, and I'll read this slowly so you hear it because you're hearing it for the first time. For the record, the owner must provide in writing to the satisfaction of the Secretary Treasurer that clearance from the applicable utilities I'm reading my own scribbling. From applicable utilities that the location of the proposed driveway does not impact the utility equipment located on site at the southeast corner. So, Matthew, I'll get you to show up there for the rest of the committee. There's 2 utilities that sit on each side. I believe there's one on each side of the driveway. And they would like the condition added that the owners of those utilities provide in writing that the driveway does not impact them as well. So that's the first condition that will be added. And the second one now, we would like to add a condition that the responsible party ensure that the existing curb cut is filled and there is only one curb cut at the new driveway location. Okay, so those 2 conditions would be added, and then we'll look for a motion. Oh, sure.
Can you read that you want the condition that adding of the utilities?
Read it to you again? Okay. It says the owner provide in writing to the satisfaction of the Secretary Treasurer that clearance from applicable utilities provide to the satisfaction of the Secretary that clearance has been given from the applicable utilities that the location of the proposed driveway does not impact the utility equipment located on the site.
Okay, that's good.
Okay?
I was worried about the setbacks from utilities, so provided they get the clearance from them, everything's okay.
Okay. All right. So now, motion.
Through the chair. So I will move that minor variances MV 2018-36A, B, C, and D be approved subject to the conditions contained in the staff report and the additional 2 conditions that have been brought forward this evening.
Seconder for that motion, please. Hank, thank you. All right. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And thank you for your patience tonight. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Carry on your good work.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. That concludes our applications for tonight. Thank you again for your patience in coming out, everybody. We appreciate your interest. Under new business, I would just, with the indulgence of the committee, I would just like to make an official thank you to past mayor and councillors who gave me the opportunity for the last 2 terms to be part of this committee. This was an extremely interesting process. The past and present staff that I've had the pleasure of working with over the years, names like Marco Romano, who's no longer here, Glenn Letman, and certainly both Antonio and Matthew here with us. You've all been a pleasure to work with. And finally, all the past and committee members, some of them have passed on even from this world that we've worked with. Everyone has been such a pleasure to work with, and this committee best of all. The majority of us are not returning for next year. for the next term, only Tom. So I wish you all the best of luck with all of your newbies, and enjoy it. It really has been a pleasure, and 8 years is a long time, but it's gone a lot faster than I wish it had of. So thank you all very, very much for your time. Anyone else under new business? Hank.
At least 2 people are new members. Maybe you could just identify yourselves.
Michelle Boyer, new member.
Okay.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Welcome, Michelle. Excellent. Well, good for you guys. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering.
If I may. So before we conclude on new business, I too want to thank each of you for the service that you have, and knowledge and experience and expertise that you've brought to this committee, as well as the Property Standards Committee, which I believe we didn't. We must have set a record for the number of Property Standard Committee meetings, probably in the town's history over the last 4 years, and those were equally dynamic, interesting, and for the 2 new folks who are going to be joining the committee, you get to do that, and this committee as well. So as part of the package. And the appeal tribunal, and those are both really almost more quasi-judicial than even this committee. The powers that those committees have are even a little bit more far-reaching than this one. And finally, I want to thank Grace in particular for doing such an incredible job of chairing these meetings, in a lot of cases some very challenging circumstances. And I'm going to be the first to admit that as many committees that I've sat on and as many meetings as I have run over my career, I find myself still learning, which I'll credit Grace for in part. And it has been a pleasure working with all of you, and I will do my best to, with the new members, to continue the great work that this committee does. So thank you all.
Thanks very much. My official turn in my ID badge, right? I can do that as I leave the room as well. Anything else? I'll call for a motion to adjourn, please. We are adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.